one of my favorite books that I've read, 48 Laws of Power. Now, a lot of people have a lot of controversy about that book. They feel like it's quite manipulative. And to an extent, I do agree. If you actually look at the laws in that book, there's a lot of stuff that I'd say quite a shiesty person would do. But there's a few laws in that book that I would take and you can actually apply them to your everyday life. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to break down some of those laws. I'm going to start from my favorite ones, right? So one of my favorite ones has to be the first one, law number one. This is arguably the most important law, you could say. I think in everyday life you can use this. And if this backfires and if you go against this law, it can have really bad consequences, right? Law number one, never outshine the master. Okay. The reason why this one is so interesting is because in general life, do you know how many people go against the people above them? Any superiors they've got in life, when the underlings feel like they get to a certain level, they start talking crazy to the superior. They think that, oh, because the superior is older and maybe they didn't have as many opportunities, they think that they're washed up. But that's never the case. Whenever you've got someone ahead of you in that chain of command, you always have to salute to them. Just by principle, you have to just salute to them anyway. And if you don't salute to them, bad things can happen to you. So with this, always want to talk about examples, but the example I always use is 50 Cent. 50 Cent's one of my favorite artists, by the way, yeah. So I'm going to talk about 50 Cent in the game. So that's when the student tried to outshine the master. So that's where it goes bad. And then I'm going to talk about it going well. So 50 Cent and Eminem. Alright, so we're going to talk about Game first. Game's also one of my favorite rappers as well. He's not in my top 10, but if I had a top 15, maybe top 20, Game would definitely be there. I think, given how talented this guy is, like, his reputation should be way better. Like, the way people look at him, I think they look at him like he's a good artist, but I don't think he gets the credit he deserves, right? And I think the reason for this is because Game was with Dre for a couple of years, but the Game couldn't really write choruses, but he was always good at rapping, always had good bars, but he couldn't make a song. And back then, in those times, if you couldn't make a song with a catchy chorus, you just couldn't sell any records. The record label would be afraid to put your stuff out. That's where 50 Cent comes in. 50 Cent gets the call. Jimmy Iovine asks if 50 can try and help Game get a couple choruses so they can help release his album. 50's just like, okay, cool, coming off Get Rich or Die Trying, the G-Unit Beg for Mercy album. 50's the hottest thing ever. Cool. So now he's working on the Massacre album. For the Massacre album, in a 2-day span, basically, I think he had written between 12 to 14 songs. They weren't kind of fully finished songs, but he had just kind of rushed through them. And he had done that on a weekend, I think, leading up to the Massacre. In those group of songs, you had So Seductive was in there. Candy Shop, I think was part, no, sorry, not Candy Shop. Sorry, ignore what I'm saying. In that group of songs, we had some songs that 50 was going to go on to then give to the Game. Hate It or Love It, How We Do, So Seductive for Tony Yayo as well was in that batch. So 50 makes his batch of songs now. What happens now? 50 invites the Game over to his house, so 50 can kind of help him, try and teach him how to craft these choruses. How We Do, Hate It or Love It, basically gives them to Game, lets Game fill in the gaps, gives them a song called Higher as well, Church for Thugs, a couple of the songs on that album. So ultimately, 50 gave him 6 songs for that album. Album does well, sells almost 600k first week. Game's on top of the world now. He's fully gassed. He's brought back the West Coast. He's the savior, etc., etc. Long story short now, 50 starts beefing Jadakiss, Fat Joe. Now, listening to 50, 50 is a very principled guy. An enemy of my enemy is my friend. A friend of my enemy is my enemy. If 50's beefing someone, if you're cool with 50 now, you have to be beefing them or 50's going to go against you. So when 50's got beef with Fat Joe, Yayo's got beef with Fat Joe. When 50's got beef with Styles P, Yayo's got beef with Styles P. That's just how 50 operates. So the Game now, documentary comes out, does amazing. Now the Game's doing interviews saying that he's not going to go against Fat Joe and Jadakiss and they're some of his favorite rappers and all that kind of stuff. Long story short, 50 kicks him out of G-Unit. Now, the Game has an opportunity now. He could either try and rekindle things with 50, or he could do what he did and go completely against him. At the moment, 50's earning so much money for Interscope that even though Dre's West Coast, obviously Dre's going to have to favor 50 because 50's the money maker. So now Game is pretty much left with nothing. He doesn't have support from the label. He's ran out of his label money as well. And obviously he's not signed in a good contract most likely. So then now he's struggling, doesn't have much to do. Luckily, because of his talent, he manages to make The Doctor's Advocate, which I think is his best album. Makes The Doctor's Advocate, so he's got 2 classic albums under his belt for me. After that album, I don't want to say the Game's career fell off, but he still had good albums. I thought the Church album, Jesus Piece, was good. I thought Red album was good. Documentary 2 was good. The Game releases good albums, but if you just look at the Game and you look at his legacy, Game should be on Power. Game should be doing whatever 50's doing because they've got a similar talent level, but it's just not like that. That's just not what's happening, and the Game fumbled his opportunity because he got big-headed and he thought he was ahead of 50. So now, 20 years later, if you look at the Game's perception now, he's not really much of a mogul. People don't really respect him, revere him the way he should be. So that's a sign of when never outshine the master, when that goes wrong. So now, we're going to move on to 50 and Eminem. I love watching 50 Cent interviews. If you watch 50 Cent interviews, every time he talks about Eminem, for 20 years now, he's never once said a bad word about Eminem. He reveres him so much that he even says that in terms of hierarchy, it's his grandparents and it's Eminem on the same level. The reason for that being that those people are the only people that could actually help 50 do stuff that he couldn't already do himself. 50 had a hard upbringing. His mom passed away when he was young. I think he was either 8 years old or 12 years old. I want to say 8. He lived with his grandparents, but there were loads of kids in the house, so he kind of had to fend for himself. But obviously his grandparents gave him love, and that's something that he couldn't really find anywhere else because no one else has helped him out. Then Eminem, Marshall Mathers LP, sold 23 million records for that. He had all the big flags around it. So when he approached 50, Eminem was the only person pretty much in the world that had done what 50 wanted to do. 50 wanted to have that same impact with his Get Rich or Die Trying album that Eminem had. And because 50 was beefing with Ja Rule, and Ja Rule was going to basically, Ja Rule and Irv Gotti were basically going to veto a lot of the moves 50 was going to make if he signed to other labels. But because Eminem and Dre are bigger than Irv and Ja Rule, they had the power to basically unblackball 50 Cent. So Eminem pretty much has helped 50 so much. So going on 20 years now, whenever you see an interview with 50, he always bigs up Eminem. If you even look, when 50 did the Star Walk of Fame, who's there doing the speech? Eminem is there doing a speech for him. They clearly have a great relationship with each other still. Because they've got a great relationship, they've been able to do songs together 20 years later. When Eminem's doing the Super Bowl now, Jay's running the Super Bowl. Eminem says to Jay he's not doing the Super Bowl unless 50's there. If 50 had ever tried to outshine Eminem, Eminem might have felt away and he would have thought, yo, this guy's trying to rival me. I'm going to be I'm going to hold opportunities to my chest and I'm not going to help him out. But because 50 always makes it clear that Eminem's above him in the hierarchy, Eminem is very forthcoming with information and help. He'll do anything to help 50. If Eminem was in a position where 50, for whatever reason, 50 was in a bad position and 50 needed a hit and Eminem was told that this is a hit song and 50 needs a hit, Eminem, regardless of whatever he's going through, he'd give 50 that hit. That's the love that they've got for each other. So whenever you've got a mentor, whenever you've got a superior in command, always salute to them. It doesn't matter if you think that they're getting a bit washed up, they're getting a bit older, you think you've got more knowledge than them. No, that's not how it works. There's a hierarchy in life. Always have to make them comfortable, make them know that they're above you so that they can help you in any way they need. You give the help back, and then years later, you guys can still help each other. And that's just the way things go. That's just how things should go the right way. And as a person of honor, you want to always salute to those older than you and people that put you on.